I never thought my life would change because of a birthday cake. After driving 9 hours through the worst blizzard I had seen in years, I finally reached our house, excited to surprise my wife Danielle on her birthday. The custom cake with our wedding photo was still perfect despite the treacherous journey. But as I approached our kitchen window, I heard her tell her sister, "God, I hope he crashes. I could use the insurance money." Her sister laughed and replied, "Or at least a few months of silence." They laughed together, while my world collapsed. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know in the comments where you are watching from, and subscribe if you have ever had your trust completely shattered by someone you loved. My name is Justice, a 35-year-old structural engineer, specializing in major infrastructure projects across the country. My work has taken me to every corner of America, designing bridges and buildings that will stand for generations. I met Danielle 6 years ago at my college roommate's wedding in Chicago. She was the maid of honor, captivating everyone with her charm and quick wit. When our eyes met across the reception hall, something clicked. She approached me with a confidence I found irresistible, asking me to dance before I could gather the courage to ask her. Our connection was immediate and intense. Danielle worked in pharmaceutical sales, her ambition matching my own drive for success. Our first date stretched from coffee to dinner to late-night walks along Lake Michigan. Within weeks, we were inseparable. And after a year of dating, I proposed on the same lakeshore where we had spent so many evenings planning our futures. The first 3 years of marriage were everything I had hoped for. We both worked hard in Chicago, supported each other's career goals, and spent our weekends exploring the city or taking spontaneous road trips. We talked about starting a family once we were more established, agreeing that building financial security first was important. My career began taking off when I was assigned to lead projects in neighboring states. These assignments meant being away for 2 to 3 weeks at a time, then home for 1 week. The separation was difficult, but we made it work through daily video calls and text messages throughout the day. The increased salary and bonuses allowed us to buy a beautiful home and take luxury vacations when I had time off. Around our 4th anniversary, I noticed Danielle becoming increasingly frustrated with my travel schedule. Despite the financial benefits, she complained about being alone, about missing important social events, about how other couples spent more time together. "I feel like I am married to your job, not you," she would say during our video calls, her tone growing more bitter over time. When a particularly prestigious project in Denver would have required 3 months away, Danielle reached her breaking point. She suggested we move to Rochester, a smaller city where she had family, arguing that we could find more stability there, though it meant stepping back from the career trajectory I had worked so hard for. I agreed. I loved her and wanted our marriage to work. I took a position with a regional firm in Rochester, accepting a 40% pay cut to accommodate our new life. We bought a charming 2-story house near her sister Amanda, and for a few months things improved. Danielle seemed happier, and we fell back into the rhythm of daily life together. Then came the opportunity I could not refuse, leading a 6-month restoration project on a historic bridge in Minneapolis. The salary would help recover our financial cushion, which had been shrinking since the move. When I told Danielle, her face fell. "We moved here so you would be home more, not so you could disappear for even longer stretches," she argued. "This is just one project," I explained. "The money will set us up to start a family when I am done. Plus, Minneapolis is only a 4-hour drive. I can come home some weekends." She reluctantly agreed, but our communication began deteriorating almost immediately. Our video calls became shorter with Danielle, often claiming she was too tired or busy to talk. When we did speak, she seemed distracted, checking her phone, or suddenly remembering errands she needed to run. I noticed subtle changes through the screen. A new haircut, clothes I had never seen before, makeup on weekday evenings, when she usually stayed home. When I asked about these changes, she would become defensive. Am I not allowed to take care of myself just because you are not here? As her 32nd birthday approached, I became determined to repair whatever was fracturing between us. The project in Minneapolis was at a critical stage, but I requested emergency personal leave, explaining to my supervisor that my marriage might depend on this gesture. The morning of her birthday, I checked the weather forecast with growing concern. A major winter storm was moving across the region, with predictions of 12 to 18 inches of snow and wind gusts up to 40 miles per hour. My colleagues urged me to postpone my trip. The roads will be a nightmare, my assistant project manager warned. They are already talking about closing the highways. But I was determined. I had ordered a custom cake, featuring a photo from our wedding day, bought diamond earrings she had admired months earlier, and secured front-row tickets to her favorite band performing in Rochester the following weekend. This surprise would remind her of the love and commitment I still felt. I left Minneapolis at noon, expecting the usual 4-hour drive to take maybe 6 hours in the storm. I vastly underestimated the conditions. Within an hour, visibility dropped to mere feet in front of my truck. The highway became a single lane of crawling vehicles following the taillights ahead. Several times I nearly slid off the road, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. At a rest stop, I heard other travelers discussing road closures ahead. The main highway was being shut down due to multiple accidents. I studied my GPS, finding an alternate route that would add at least 2 hours to the journey. As I stood in line for coffee, my phone rang. It was Danielle. "Happy birthday," I said, cheerfully, not revealing where I was. "Thanks," she replied, her voice flat. "Are you still at the site?" I lied, not wanting to ruin the surprise. "Yeah, things are busy here. How are you celebrating?" "Amanda is coming over later. Just a quiet night in." "That sounds nice. Listen, the reception is bad here. Can I call you later?" After hanging up, I felt a renewed determination to complete this journey, to show her how much she still meant to me, despite our recent difficulties. The alternate route took me through small towns and unplowed county roads. Twice I had to stop, completely waiting for snowplows to clear the path ahead. The cake remained perfect in its refrigerated container on the passenger seat, the gift bag beside it. I imagined her face when she saw me, the joy of a genuine surprise on her birthday. 9 grueling hours after leaving Minneapolis, I finally turned onto our street in Rochester. The snow had lightened slightly, but the wind still whipped across the yards, creating deep drifts against houses and cars. Amanda's SUV sat in our driveway, covered in a fresh layer of white. The house glowed warmly against the dark winter night just past 10:30 p.m. I parked on the street, not wanting the sound of the garage door to announce my arrival. Gathering the cake and gift bag, I carefully made my way through the snow toward the house, a smile spreading across my face despite my exhaustion. This would be worth every treacherous mile. As I approached our house, I could see Danielle and Amanda through the kitchen window. They sat at our island counter, wine glasses in hand, laughing about something. My heart warmed at the sight of my wife looking so happy on her birthday. I decided to sneak around to the side door, which would let me enter the kitchen directly for maximum surprise effect. I carefully balanced the cake box while navigating the unshoveled path around the house. As I neared the kitchen window, I paused to catch my breath and prepare for my entrance. That is when I heard them. "So he is still coming back this weekend?" Amanda asked. Danielle sighed loudly. "Yes, and I seriously cannot take another 4 months of his calls and neediness." I froze the cake, suddenly heavy in my hands. "Have you told him that you need space?" Amanda asked, refilling both their wine glasses. "What am I supposed to say? Sorry you took a job you hate and moved to this boring city for me, but I have changed my mind." Danielle rolled her eyes. "He is so weak sometimes, always sacrificing for me. It is suffocating." My breath caught in my throat. Weak, I had given up career opportunities, taken a massive pay cut, moved away from my friends, all because I loved her. and wanted to make her happy. The worst part is the daily check-ins. Danielle continued, her voice taking on a mocking tone. How was your day, honey? I miss you so much. Did you eat dinner? Amanda laughed. The horror of a husband who cares. You know what I mean, Danielle replied. God, I hope he crashes. I could use the insurance money from his work policy. Did I tell you it is worth $600,000? The world seemed to stop. Blood rushed in my ears as I struggled to process what I had just heard. My wife, the woman I had driven 9 hours through a blizzard for, was casually wishing for my death. Or at least a few months of silence. Amanda replied with a snort. Maybe you could finally have some fun without the guilt trips. They both laughed, the sound like shards of glass in my chest. He is so pathetic with his constant devotion, Danielle said, shaking her head. Alex knows how to have fun without the emotional baggage. Speaking of Alex, Amanda wiggled her eyebrows suggestively. When are you seeing him again? Tomorrow night, Danielle grinned. Justice thinks I am going to that pharmaceutical dinner. My legs felt numb, disconnected from my body. I stood in the snow, the wind cutting through my coat, but I barely felt it. My mind frantically tried to make sense of what I was hearing. Alex. Who was Alex? And how long had this been going on? I wanted to burst through the door to confront them, to demand explanations. But something deeper held me back, a sudden clarity cutting through the shock and pain. This was who she truly was. The mask had slipped, and I was seeing the real Danielle for the first time. With mechanical movements, I walked to our side door, inserted my key, and quietly stepped into the kitchen. Both women turned their faces freezing, in identical expressions of shock. I set the cake box gently on the counter, placed the gift bag beside it. Happy birthday, Danielle, I said, my voice unnaturally calm. Her face drained of color. Justice, what are you? How long have you? I turned without answering and walked out the same door I had entered, ignoring her calls behind me. I got into my truck and drove away, her figure growing smaller in my rearview mirror as she ran into the front yard, still calling my name. My phone began ringing immediately. I silenced it, then turned it off completely. I drove to the nearest hotel, a roadside chain property, and checked in with nothing but the clothes I wore and my wallet. In the anonymous hotel room, I finally let the emotions crash over me. I sat on the edge of the bed, my body shaking with the impact of her betrayal. Not just the apparent affair, but the casual cruelty of hoping for my death, mocking my devotion, planning meetings with her lover under the cover of work events. Sleep was impossible. Instead, I spent the night reviewing our relationship through this new painful lens. Warning signs I had ignored came into sharp focus. The password she had suddenly put on her phone. Unexplained charges on our credit card statements, weekend girls' trips, with no photos shared afterward. I opened my laptop and checked her social media accounts, finding pictures of her at clubs and restaurants on evenings. She had told me she was working late or having quiet nights at home. In several photos, a man's arm was visible around her waist, though his face was never shown. By dawn, a strange calm had settled over me. The shock had given way to clarity. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage had been a lie, but at least now I could see the truth. I returned to our house the next morning to find Danielle waiting in the living room, her eyes red and swollen. She jumped up when I entered, rushing toward me with outstretched arms. I stepped back, maintaining distance between us. Justice, please, she began, her voice breaking. What you heard last night, I did not mean any of it. I was just venting, being stupid. I looked at her, this woman I had loved and trusted for 6 years, and felt nothing but a dull ache. Who is Alex? I asked quietly. Her face crumbled. He is no one. Just a colleague. We had a few drinks together. Nothing more. Stop lying to me, Danielle. At least, give me the dignity of the truth now. She sank onto the couch, tears streaming down her face. It did not mean anything. I was lonely, and he paid attention to me. But I never slept with him, I swear. You hoped I would crash and die, I said, my voice flat. For insurance money. I was drunk. People say stupid things when they are drunk. You know I would never want anything to happen to you. I went upstairs to our bedroom and pulled out my suitcase, beginning to pack methodically. She followed me, her pleas growing more desperate. What are you doing? You cannot leave. We need to talk about this. I am going back to Minneapolis, I replied, folding clothes into the suitcase. The project needs me. So you are just going to throw away 6 years of marriage without even trying to work through this? Her tone shifted from pleading to accusatory. This is exactly what I was talking about. You run away from emotional confrontation. I stopped and looked at her directly. You wished me dead, Danielle, while I was driving through a blizzard to surprise you with a cake that I carried for 9 hours because I loved you. Her tactics changed again. I will hurt myself if you leave, she threatened, her voice dropping to a whisper. I cannot live without you. Call Amanda, I replied, continuing to pack. Or Alex. While she sobbed on our bed, I went into the home office and began gathering important documents. In the desk drawer, I found credit card statements I had never seen before, showing charges for hotels in Rochester on days I was away, expensive restaurant bills and gifts purchased at a high-end jewelry store. In the bathroom, I opened her drawer to collect my razor and found her phone charger. On impulse, I checked her phone, which she had left downstairs. There was no password protection now, perhaps removed in her panic. I found hundreds of messages between her and Alex, dating back nearly a year. The content left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. I called my company and arranged to return to Minneapolis, immediately citing a family emergency. My supervisor, hearing the strain in my voice, approved without questions. Next, I called an attorney whose card I had from a company event, scheduling a consultation for later that week. In our bedroom, I found Danielle sitting silently watching me pack. My parents called, she said flatly. They want to know why I am hysterical at 9 in the morning. What should I tell them? Whatever you want, I replied. The truth might be refreshing. I went into the bathroom to collect my toiletries and heard her on the phone with her parents crafting a story about a terrible misunderstanding about things said in jest that I had overheard and misconstrued. I called my own parents from the guest room, giving them a brief factual account of what had happened. My father, always stoic, simply asked what I needed. My mother cried quietly, but assured me I was making the right decision. They offered their home if I needed a place to stay, but understood when I said I needed to return to Minneapolis for work. Back in our bedroom, I found Danielle going through my suitcase, removing items. You cannot leave like this, she insisted. We need time to talk, to process. There is nothing to process, I replied, replacing the items. You showed me who you really are. I went downstairs and called my bank, setting up a new account in only my name. I transferred half of our savings, leaving her share untouched. I ordered new credit cards to be sent to my Minneapolis address and placed a freeze on our joint cards. When I returned upstairs, Danielle's demeanor had changed again. Anger had replaced tears. Her face flushed and eyes narrowed. This is so typical of you, Justice. Running away when things get difficult. I never should have married someone so boring and predictable. Someone who puts work before everything else. I zipped my suitcase closed and looked at her. You wished I would crash and die on the road, Danielle. For insurance money. There is no coming back from that. It was a joke, she shouted. Why can you not understand that? Because I heard how you said it, I replied quietly. And I heard you laugh. Afterward, I carried my suitcase downstairs, gathered my laptop and essential documents, and walked toward the front door. Danielle followed, her anger giving way to panic again. Where will you go? What will you do? She demanded. Back to Minneapolis, back to the project, and us. What about our marriage? I paused at the door, looking back at the house we had bought together, the life we had planned. There is no us anymore, Danielle. You made sure of that. The relief I felt driving away surprised me. Despite the pain and betrayal, there was a strange sense of freedom in having the illusion stripped away. The sky had cleared overnight, the sun reflecting blindingly off the fresh snow, as if the universe were emphasizing the clarity I now possessed. For the first week, I ignored dozens of calls, texts, and increasingly manipulative messages from Danielle. She cycled through tactics: remorse, anger, guilt threats, nostalgia, each designed to draw me back into conversation. I maintained silence, communicating only through the attorney I had retained. I reached out to a few mutual friends, sharing a simplified version of what had happened before Danielle could control the narrative. Through these conversations, I discovered her relationship with Alex had been ongoing for nearly a year, an open secret among some of her friends. I threw myself into the Minneapolis project, working 14-hour days, finding solace in the concrete challenges of structural engineering. At night, in my temporary apartment, I began researching what a new life might look like. 3 weeks after leaving Rochester, I had established a routine in Minneapolis. My temporary housing near the project site was Spartan but functional. I had joined a gym to burn off the restless energy that kept me awake at night. Twice weekly, I met with a therapist who specialized in betrayal trauma. "What you experienced was emotional abuse," Dr. Parker told me during one session. "Her wishing harm on you, her manipulation, her gaslighting afterward. These are not actions of someone who loves you." I reconnected with old friends from engineering school, people I had gradually lost touch with during my marriage. One night over beers, my friend Thomas confessed that he had never liked Danielle. She always seemed to be performing man, like she was playing a role instead of being real. My attorney called with updates on the divorce proceedings. Given the evidence of infidelity, Danielle would not be entitled to alimony, though we would still need to divide assets acquired during the marriage. She is contesting everything he warned. This could get ugly. Danielle's attempts to contact me grew more desperate. She enlisted her parents, who left voicemails about forgiveness and second chances. Her sister Amanda called to apologize for her part in the conversation I had overheard. "She is falling apart," Amanda told me. "She has lost weight, called in sick to work repeatedly. She truly regrets what she said. I regret the 9 hours I spent driving through a blizzard for someone who wished me dead," I replied before hanging up. When the divorce papers were delivered to our Rochester home, Danielle apparently screamed so loudly that our neighbor called the police, concerned about domestic violence. The next day, she showed up at my project site in Minneapolis, somehow having discovered my workplace address. "Justice," she called out as I walked to my truck after work. She looked thinner, her usually perfect appearance disheveled. "Please, just talk to me." Security escorted her away as she cried and shouted about forgiveness and mistakes. I drove home shaking, disturbed by the encounter and her increasing desperation. My attorney arranged a meeting at a neutral location with both legal representatives present. Danielle arrived, looking composed but fragile, her eyes constantly seeking mine across the conference table. When presented with the evidence of her affair, including hotel receipts and text messages, she broke down. "I took you for granted," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "I never appreciated your sacrifices. Alex was just excitement, a distraction. He did not mean anything. He meant enough for you to wish me dead," I replied quietly. "I have lost everything," she whispered. "Alex ended things when the divorce became messy. My friends judge me. My family is disappointed. I miss you every day. I am sorry you are hurting," I said, surprising myself with the sincerity of the statement. "But what you destroyed cannot be rebuilt." The divorce was finalized 4 months after that birthday night. I sold my share of our Rochester house to Danielle, who obtained a loan to buy me out. The financial settlement was straightforward, with each of us retaining our personal retirement accounts and splitting the joint savings and investments. 6 months after leaving, I accepted a position with a prestigious engineering firm in Seattle, leading their infrastructure division. The role offered creative challenges, leadership opportunities, and salary that exceeded even my best years before moving to Rochester. In my new city, I purchased a modern apartment overlooking Puget Sound and gradually built a life focused on personal growth and professional fulfillment. I joined a hiking group, took cooking classes, and learned to sail on the weekends. 8 months after the move, I met Catherine, an architect whose firm collaborated with mine on a waterfront revitalization project. Unlike Danielle, she radiated genuine warmth and authenticity. Our relationship developed slowly, my caution obvious, but understood. Broken trust takes time to heal, Catherine said when I finally shared my full story. I am willing to move at whatever pace feels safe to you. A year and a half after that, Snowstorm Drive business brought me back to Minneapolis for a conference. In the hotel restaurant, I encountered Danielle in town visiting a friend. She looked startled, then nervous, as I approached her table. "Justice," she said softly. "You look well." "So do you," I replied, and meant it. She had regained her healthy appearance, though her eyes carried a new sadness. "I never properly apologized," she said, looking down at her hands. "Not in a way that was not about trying to get you back. I am truly sorry for the horrible things I said, for the pain I caused you. You deserved better. Thank you for saying that," I replied. "I hope you are finding your way forward." "I am trying," she nodded. "Therapy helps." "Are you happy now?" she asked hesitantly. I considered the question. "Yes," I said finally. Different than I planned, but yes. Walking away from her table, I felt the last weight of bitterness lifting. The lesson had been brutal but transformative. Self-respect must come before devotion to someone who does not value it. My life in Seattle with Catherine continues to unfold with a depth of mutual appreciation I never experienced before. The trust builds slowly, tested by time and transparency. When challenges arise, we face them as true partners, neither dominating nor submitting. Sometimes I think about that cake left on the counter as evidence of both my love and my final goodbye. It represented everything I had been willing to do for someone who had secretly wished me harm. The universe had granted me a terrible gift that night, the unvarnished truth that ultimately set me free. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who did not value you? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story helped you recognize your own worth, please hit subscribe and like this video. Share it with someone who might need to hear that self-respect is not negotiable. Sometimes the hardest journeys lead to the best destinations. Thank you for letting me share my story with you today. Remember, you deserve someone who would drive through a snowstorm for you. And then thank you for the privilege.